brands using the hashtag #MobileFirst. Again, that's mobile for brands with the number 4 using the hashtag #MobileFirst. We're also recording today's session, and we'll make it available to all of you along with copies of the slides later this week. So before we get started, in today's mobile-first world, the mobile device is the strongest connection a brand can have to its customers. As the bridge between the physical and digital worlds, mobile's advantage is that it can bring a deeper than ever level of contextual relevance to that relationship at every stage of the customer journey. The challenge is to understand what value that context can provide and where and how mobile is going to be most effective in enriching and adding value to those connected customers at every stage of their journey. That's what we're going to discuss today with the help of our guest speakers, Paul Berney, who's Managing Partner and Co-Founder of mCordis, and Syniverse's Senior Director of Mobile Engagement, Rob Hammond. Paul has almost 10 years of experience in mobile marketing. In 2012, he was recognized as the leading speaker on mobile marketing worldwide by C-Squared. He is a business leader in the Marketing Society, a fellow of the Institute of Direct and Digital Marketing, a member of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, and a mentor in the Marketing Academy. He's also a judge of the annual European Loyalty Awards, the Card and Payments Awards, and the Mobile Innovation Awards. And if that wasn't enough, he sits on the editorial board of the IDM and was voted one of the top 50 influencers in mobile marketing in the UK by the Drum magazine in both 2013 and 2014. Rob has more than 28 years of global leadership experience in enterprise strategy, product management, sales, and engineering, with a special focus in mobile and enterprise applications. In helping brands unlock the value of mobile, Rob is one of the leaders in Syniverse's Enterprise and Intelligence Solutions business unit, which is our business unit that enables brands and mobile service providers to better engage mobile users. Prior to joining Syniverse, Rob served in leadership roles for several of the world's largest mobile and technology companies, including Microsoft, Sprint, and Motorola. So without further ado, I'm thrilled to hand over to Paul.
Fantastic. Thank you, John, and thank you to Syniverse for the invitation to join you for today. It's a pleasure to be with you all. So I'm going to start with a really, what I think is hopefully a basic statement rather than a controversial one for everybody, which is that there is no more linear customer journey that any of us take as consumers. Hopefully that's a kind of self-evident thing for everybody here on this call. And if there ever was one, a linear journey, it's certainly been replaced. And what we're going to do today is explore the reasons why and also what you should, as brand managers and marketers, what you should do about that. Part of our argument is going to be today that actually what you need to do is to remap the customer journey. And in a simple way of just showing you that, I'm looking at an example of the past and present of the way in which we bought products in a supermarket. We used to have this nice, easy to manage linear funnel for a brand, a CPG brand or retailer, where they could look at the consumers going to the supermarket, who would then decide what they wanted to buy, decide in the aisle which products they would look at, select that product and buy. And of course, that whole process has changed now because we spend a great deal of our time exploring and discovering products before we've even gone to a store. And so not only has the journey itself changed, but the point at which we had our main interaction as brands has changed. So we've moved from having that interaction at what used to be called the first moment of truth to now having a major need to interact with consumers right at the start of their journey, what is called by many the zero moment of truth, and indeed throughout the whole customer journey. And what we're going to suggest to you today and argue with you today is that mobile is a crucial element to all of this because it's ever present throughout this customer journey. So what we see is the end of this linear journey and a replacement with one that is perhaps circular or elliptical. This is one that's often quoted by people from McKinsey, but if you Googled the customer journey, now you would find all kinds of shaped ones, anything but a straight line. So there's strong influence from mobile into the retail world, and in fact, in the US at least, mobile already influences 19% of all sales in retail outlets. That's not necessarily meaning everything goes through the mobile channel to be bought, but actually that mobile has a part to play and influences everything that's bought at a retail level. So let's look at a bit and explore a bit why that's become the case, what has changed, and there are 2 or 3 things that have really changed in our world as consumers that have made an impact and that mean that we as marketers need to react to that. The first is that the way in which we compete as businesses has changed over time. We've moved from a world where manufacturing was king through to the world of distribution being king, and then into the information age, where where we had access to the internet, and that became the most important thing, access to information. Now with mobile, with cloud computing, and with the Internet of Things, the power has very definitely shifted into the hands of the consumer. And so what we see now is the start of this huge, long business cycle that's being predicted by Forrester and others, where the consumer is in control because of all the tools they have available to them. And they are now very much the ones who decide at what point in the path to purchase or the customer journey that they are going to engage with brands. So I mentioned before that there's the concept of having a moment of truth within the customer journey, and for every brand there are at least 3. More kind of classically trained marketers like myself, we used to think of there being 2: the moment in the store when someone picks your product, and then the moment when they open the packaging and use it. And of course, the internet has brought us the 0 moment of truth. The critical point to make here is that mobile is the only ever-present channel throughout everybody's customer journey. It is the only channel and the only device we have available to us at every single moment of truth. And we need to think about how we use that as marketers. One of the impacts that this is having is that it's also changing the role of the CMO. Traditionally, CMOs used to be very strong in 1 or 2 channels and then use people to help manage the others. Now that there are so many channels and so many devices and so many different solutions available to us, CMOs are starting to become more of a conductor of an orchestra, and their job is more to make the best of all of everything that's available to them at one time, rather than just be strong in simply 1 channel. The second big change that we note that's driving this change in the customer journey is simply this. Mobile is both causing and enabling an irrevocable change in our consumer behavior. This image has always struck me as kind of funny, but if 3 world leaders find it acceptable to take a selfie at somebody's funeral, then you know that mobile must be having a huge impact on people's behavior. But joking aside, we can see throughout all of our lives that we've become to rely on mobile, and to a certain extent, mobiles have become our second brains, and they've allowed us they act as a second brain. They allow us to know things we didn't used to know. We have access to almost the sum total of human knowledge through mobile devices being with us at all stages. And so as consumers, what we know is that we have access to a device that will allow us to click and find, click and buy, click and do in an instant. And it has to change the way in which we think and act as consumers, and of course it is. And I always emphasize to people that I would rather they thought about the behavioral impact of mobile than they spent time thinking about the technology, because it's not really the technology that's important. A couple of things that we might consider here are, we quite often talk about the world being split up into digital immigrants and digital natives, the under 35s versus the over 35s, or perhaps slightly older than 35 in some countries. But actually what we are seeing is that we're moving to a world of digital dependence. People who would rather give up anything else before they gave up their mobile devices, who are completely addicted to them. Many brands focus their attention today on millennials who fit into this category. But we ought to consider that behind those millennials are today's under 18-year-olds, as some people call them, the centennials, those people who are utterly dependent upon mobile and who cannot go back from a world in which everybody is connected together with their mobile devices. So as marketers, we need to think about the way in which mobile affects and is affected by people's different need states and mind states. So you know you can pick up your mobile phone right now and fulfill any one of these 8 tasks on the right-hand side of the screen. And part of the role of marketers is to think, how can we do one or more of these things throughout the customer journey? When would be the appropriate time to do that? How do we engage with customers when they know that they can do these tasks at different stages? And of course, because we have our mobiles with us all the time, we also have a different set of expectations about how we will engage with brands, or each other, and organizations. Today's mobile consumer really wants convenience. They want to engage in a two-way dialogue with brands. They expect to participate, and they want to control the way in which they have a dialogue with brands. And that's partly because they've got used to that through what you might think of as the leaders in the digital world. So Google, Amazon, Facebook, and Apple are the ones who are setting the expectations of consumers. For instance, consumers are getting used to the idea of the Amazon world of recommend and review before they buy products. So for instance, they think in the mindset of people who like X also liked Y and Z. We're also used to sharing and having shared with us almost everything that we do in our lives through Facebook and others. And of course, Apple are changing the way in which we experience retail full stop. They're also at the forefront of helping us understand that a brand today is not simply a physical product, but is actually a collection of both physical and digital experiences. I wanted to illustrate to you how that behavior is changing a couple of things by using some examples. Sales of gum in the United States in 2014 dropped by almost 25%, which is unheard of and extraordinary in a market where people have been used to single-digit movements over the past 10 or so years. And in fact, once they looked into this, the chewing gum manufacturers discovered that the change was because our behavior at the point of sale has changed. 75% of all gum in the United States is sold at point of purchase or point of sale. And of course, now when we're waiting online or standing in a queue, we are looking down at our mobile devices and not looking up at the environment around us. And that single change in behavior caused and enabled by mobile has had a dramatic effect upon the sales of that product. A second thing to consider here is, once we experience a mobile service delivered to us, we're very reluctant to go backwards. So the picture on the screen I'm showing with you now is of a signpost from Dubai. Throughout most of the Middle East, you can pay for your parking slots via text. You simply park your car up, text in the code in front of you on the sign, and you are automatically charged against your carrier for 1 hour's worth of parking. The interesting thing is that at 55 minutes, you receive a text message to ask you, do you want to renew, or are you going to move your car in the next 5 minutes? Thereby helping people avoid getting fines for parking over time. But they've also discovered that it makes people move their cars on quicker as well, and cuts down the cost of having to send around tow trucks. So there's both a consumer benefit and an organizational benefit. So it's just 2 examples of the way in which mobile is changing behavior. And it's this behavioral change that we really need to focus ourselves on. We need to think about how we understand all that consumer behavior. So what we're seeing is marketers moving towards personas that capture not only our basic demographics, but also understand the historical sales data that we've had. What are the things that trigger us to buy? Who can we reach, and who are we influenced by, and all of our different digital behaviors. So mobile is both the beneficiary of and the builder of a lot of the big data that we capture that we want to use in personas. And so what we're seeing a lot of brands do, therefore, is capture more and more data from both the digital and offline touch points but also to map out their customer journey in a simple way, as you can see here on the screen, and to say, what are all the touch points that we currently have? How could we use mobile to extend and enhance those touch points and maybe eventually replace them? But the focus right now is, how do we make our existing marketing and our existing media work better and work harder? John actually hinted at it right at the start of this webinar, is that one of the key things that mobile is doing, if not the USP of mobile marketing, is its ability to allow us as marketers to use contextual relevance. And by that, I mean sending the right message to the right person at the right time and the right place. Mobile is the only channel that will allow us to do the who, what, where, and when simultaneously. No other channel can do that. And what it means is that we are able to capture more and more data about people, understand them better, and use that big data to influence small decisions. We're moving away from simply historic behavior to predictive behavior. We're using that big data to think of what our consumers are likely to do next. And in that way, we're shifting this from being considered perhaps just big data to considering it more intelligent data. And the data that we capture ourselves as brands is going to be layered on top of by the data that we can have access to or capture from what we might term the 4 epicenters of data: the social networks, the operators and carriers, supermarkets and financial services companies. And of course, that has an impact upon us as marketers, because it means we need to master new skills. It means we need to understand how to use all this data that is now being made available to us, which as marketers individually means we're either going to have to hire people who know this stuff or learn new skills ourselves. One of the other things that's most notable about the way brands are reacting is brands are starting to understand that mobile is a bridge between both the physical and the digital world. It is very definitely a digital channel, but as I mentioned earlier on, what it does exceptionally well is help our existing media work better or work harder. We tend to think of the way in which mobile impacts and influences retail shopping, for instance, as directed shopping. The ability to have, if you like, an individual path to purchase as a consumer and allow mobile to be the tool or our shopping guide that runs alongside us when we do that. So overall, what we're looking at is a need for us to reassess the way in which the consumer journey works. And we need to think about the role that mobile has throughout the whole of that journey. So in this simple illustration here, I'm suggesting these are the ways in which we might combine together different digital channels and the way in which mobile might play a part when we enter a new retail space. So we have, for instance, an ability to recognize people the moment they walk into a store because they have a mobile device with them. We establish the context of who they are, what they're doing, so we would understand whether that customer is one that has a loyalty card with us or indeed a loyalty app. We also know the time of day that they're entering the store, the day of the week, the weather outside, and we can then decide what's a relevant message that we want to send to them and the channel that we will use. It may not be exclusively mobile. We, of course, have the ability to use other digital channels within store. So it may be a combination of text messages or push messages from inside an app or an email, or indeed digital signage that is activated in store. We then have an ability to capture whether people react to the messaging that we've sent to them, whether we've sent them vouchers or whether they've redeemed something from their loyalty scheme, and then use all of that intelligence to re-inform and reinforce the journey on that customer's next visit round. So what I'm saying overall is, if we consider the ways in which mobile can be used throughout the whole of the customer journey by simply remapping the journey and seeing where the touch points are, we have an ability to use mobile to converge the technology together in the future so that what we see is a convergence of both promotion, engagement, payment, service, and loyalty, all delivered in part or in whole through mobile. Thank you all for listening to that section of it. I'm going to hand back to my colleagues now with Syniverse, who will switch to giving you some more real concrete examples of how this can be done.
Thank you, Paul. Those are great insights, and I was particularly struck by how mobile has really become the bridge between the digital and physical world, and mobile's omnipresence in the customer journey overall. It's clear that mobile is the only channel that is with the customer along the entire length of their journey. And for marketers, it's about behavior and cultural practices, not technology, and the fact that contextual relevance is absolutely critical. So this is a perfect stag for me to hand it over to Rob Hammond at this point so he can talk through some examples of mobile engagement in action.
Great. Thank you, John. And Paul, as always, it's a pleasure to listen to the insights and the information that you bring to us as a global leader in the marketing industry, and particularly how mobile brings to that. I was tweeting a little bit during your session, and I love the idea that mobile, big data becomes intelligent data, and how mobile permeates every portion of the customer journey. So at Syniverse, we use a model that I think kind of helps it become maybe perhaps a little practical in terms of how things are done. We tend to look at things as not necessarily a circle or an ellipse as you're thinking about that customer journey, but rather that mobile is at the center. It's the mobile-first journey. And when you think about things and how that customer is interfacing with us, the old world was kind of a linear model with research, purchase, experience, and then feedback and sharing, and then we'd show them, maybe somebody would show that as a feedback loop coming back to the research model again. But with mobile, and as you said so eloquently, Paul, the idea that you don't have to wait to go to the store to have that moment of truth. You don't have to wait for the person to go home and get online any longer. They can be in the store and be conducting a transaction while they're simultaneously seeking service or looking for information. Or that may be just as the point of that mobile moment when you're in a loyalty experience and then suddenly you have a transaction or an upsell opportunity. So what we tend to think about it is you're constantly in the mode of influencing your customers, connecting with those customers across all their various mechanisms or relationships, whether that be an app or text messaging or your social networks or the channels or just the web and the rich experiences that you may have there, regardless of what that particular property might be that you're connecting in. And transactions are that golden moment, that mobile moment, when that customer has sought out and is seeking information and desiring to have you interact with them and provide feedback along the path. I'm going to share a couple of examples in just a moment around how transactional messages can spawn the rest of this customer journey. But as we think about it, it's not just the transaction, it's that ongoing relationship with that user and taking that transaction to create opportunities to upsell, to enable service, and provide loyalty. And at that moment that you're on your phone, that moment that you're on the web on your phone, you're constantly connected in every portion of your life, and that's where context comes in and becomes such a critical element to how do you think about that interaction. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well as we roll through that. So as we think about how mobile is just permeating everything that we do and it enables that entire experience, let's think for a moment around how that journey works within the hospitality industry. So one of the experiences that we've had is with working with companies around doing a reservation confirmation. In this particular image, I'm showing that come as a push message from a loyalty app or an application for the hospitality. But that could just as easily have been a text message, or maybe it's an email or something along those lines. And we're showing that cross-channel experience as we move from, push to a text to an email to a survey experience. And what this creates is an opportunity for us to really impact on the business's bottom line in ensuring that we're reducing the number of no-shows. Because in the end, the critical nature of being able to interact with that customer is ensuring that they're actually going to show up. It gives the brand the maximum amount of time to resell that perishable inventory and ensure that they're getting the maximum value out of that particular piece of inventory. So as we think about it, we start with the confirmation, and then a little later we'll do a reminder, maybe 2 weeks prior, that says, hey, really looking forward to you coming, John, and we'll have these great amenities that you may want to think about. And then a little bit later, maybe you make an offering around attractions that are in the area, perhaps the London Eye if you're visiting Paul in London, or perhaps in Florida going to Orlando and seeing some kind of one of the attractions there. And then finally, the critical nature is closing that loop with that customer and doing something perhaps with a survey or some other interaction where you're using mobile to interact with that customer and finding out how their stay was. It's also important to think about how you can use mobile to be able to interact with those users to catch those silent complainers along the way, particularly in the hospitality category where we have issues where, a person may come in and, they have some kind of a poor experience, but they don't tell anyone. By proactively reaching out to that customer and connecting with them, you have that opportunity to be able to interact and seek out that information so you have an opportunity to act on their concerns or their challenges. So as we think about this within the hospitality category, you have this kind of opportunity to leverage the reservation confirmation as a transaction to move on into the opportunity as a reminder and then an amenities and an upsell, follow on again with another upsell basis, but also reinforcing that relationship, providing an opportunity for service, and then finally connecting with that user and establishing a loyal relationship with them. In another category, you can think about something similar using a shipping notification with retail. In this model, you start with the shipping notification, and don't we all get excited at the point of presence whenever we've got that package coming? I want to know when it's going to come, and how disappointed I am when it doesn't arrive. You kind of think of it as the happy to sad face as you kind of think of that experience. And you're super excited on the first day you make your order, and I'm looking at the package, I'm waiting for it to come, and then 2 to 4 business days comes, and I don't know that it's occurred. I don't know that my package is coming, and it doesn't show up on the 4th day. I'm unhappy. That call to customer service is incredibly expensive. Whereas you could be translating that into an opportunity to interact with your brand and explain to a customer, I like to say a lot, bad news never gets better with age. It's not wine. So it's most important to communicate along that customer's journey or the package's journey what's happening so that customer's informed and aware. And there's no better way to do that than to be able to take advantage of the mobile channel for that. And as we think about this opportunity to build a relationship with the customer, when you start with the transaction, you have a right to communicate with that customer where they're going to seek information from you as opposed to a push that you may experience if you're starting in the promotional side. So we get very excited about the opportunity to work with things like a reservation confirmation or a retail shipping notification or any manner of other kinds of transactional type messages that may be current in the business. On the loyalty side, simply something as simple as sending out an alert with the number of points that are left on your card. We've seen some great numbers come back on loyalty increases on being able to just interact with customers using mobile and being able to see customers increase the redemption on points and their awareness of loyalty offers. So as we think about how do we interact with those customers, the world isn't just a rich media world on the web. It's not just an email world or an app world. It's all of the channels, and we like to talk about the value of the embedded link. So there is no more ubiquitous, available, understood mobile channel than SMS. It's on every phone. It works on all the carriers. You can integrate in and work globally. But how do you use your assets that you have to bridge that connection from the user with SMS to the rich media world? And by doing that with a link, we've seen incredible results, whether that be something with a mobile coupon where you see a 10x a redemption basis, or enormous open rates for things like MMS messages in the States, as well as scratch-offs and gaming type of experiences, or moving on with pictures. And certainly the web is a picture and a visual space, and it's quickly becoming a video space as well. So understanding those different experiences and how do we take advantage of those while leveraging the strength of the link of the message in SMS. 90+% of messages are read within 3 minutes. There's nothing more compelling to that text message light being lit on your phone, but with great access becomes great responsibility. So it's super important to think about who your provider is when you're working with those elements so that you're working on quality routes and you have companies that are following the proper processes for opt-ins and that we're treating customers with the respect that they deserve in terms of interacting with them. Another way to think about the embedded link is by looking at video, and it's critical as you think about mobile video because mobile itself has some limitations associated, whether I'm on a broadband connection and Wi-Fi where I'm not paying for the data, or at least directly paying for the data, versus some kind of a 3G connection. And understanding those connections and the screen resolution means that we can manage how much buffering or wait time that the user has and encourage an experience that is awesome for the customer as a result. And certainly as you think about apps and how do we take advantage of apps, there is no more compelling experience for a customer than interacting with a brand's app. It is certainly, without question, the most compelling, richest experience possible. But it's a big if on being able to get that customer to interact. Some of the recent data I saw was that the most used app is banking, and that app is probably downloaded something around 20%. But yet maybe half of those people turn on notifications, and within 6 months another half of those users have stopped using the app. So you start seeing 10% or 5% penetrations. And so then we've got to create marketing campaigns and marketing events around how do we draw customers in, and text is an interesting way to be able to do that. And yet there's still also options around light applications, or Passbook would be the example in the Apple operating system. You know, Passbook is interesting in the sense that it bridges that link between, or that bridges that divide between the heaviness of an app and the commitment that a user is making to memory and the number of apps that are on their phone and the battery life, because the Passbook is just part of the operating system. It gives you an opportunity to dynamically update information. It can be downloaded, and we're seeing more and more uptake to that. So it becomes an interesting channel to add to your repertoire of tools in your toolbox, so to speak. You're looking at SMS with bridges to rich media, as well as the light applications, and then the full native applications as well. All of these tools, many of which are already part of the marketer's skill sets and capabilities, and what we're doing is repurposing those and making them available across the mobile journey by using mobile as that delivery mechanism. So as we think about context, Paul said it incredibly well, that this idea of moving from big data to intelligent data. I wrote an article a bit ago that got picked up in Mobile FOMO back in April, and we talked about 5 different types of context: historical context, physical context, temporal, personal, and psychological context. Typically we all think about the physical context. Where are you? But what about what do you want to do? What do you aspire to be? What are you doing at that moment? Are you waiting in line? What page are you on in your website? And then there's all that historical data, all that point-of-sale data is typically what we think about for big data, but there's all these other elements that we can think about as we think through how do we tailor that experience and deliver the richest possible experience for users. And mobile just gives us an unbelievable number of sensors and connections and media and opportunities to interact with users. And delivering that across that nature, and then ensuring that that customer is who they claim to be, and at the same time that the content and the information that you have in your database is accurate. For the last 20 years, we've been asking customers home and work, but are those mobile numbers, and are the mobile numbers that we have accurate and correct? It's critical as we think about delivering these services that we understand those definitions of identity, and we ensure that we've got the right people so that we deliver that right message at the right time. So one of the ways that we help customers kind of through this process is through the mobile engagement maturity model. And the way that we work with this is kind of as a facilitated session, and you can think about the model as being on the vertical axis or the y-axis being all the different kinds of ways that you can use mobile and interact with users. You start down there with the clients that are part of the operating system, things like SMS and email and web browsers, and then you move on and cross over a pivot point with the light applications into full native applications and the social networks and leveraging locations so you can make location-aware offers and geofences. And then on the horizontal axis, or the x-axis, you move from batch files and just uploading information with no integration to doing promotions and connecting with CRM systems to transactional data, and then finally working with third-party businesses. As you think of the offers to add a rental car when you've done a flight, or your opportunities to do an upsell on a related product. These add kind of business complexity as opposed to channel complexity on the vertical axis. And if we think about where we are today and where we wish to be, we can map your mobile journey and figure out the projects and the activities that are necessary to move the brand from where you are today to where you aspire to be, not unlike what we're talking about how we use mobile with the customer through their journey to deliver on that richest possible experience. So in conclusion with this, as we think about how do we partner and how do we work together, mobile is at the center of the customer journey. It permeates every portion of their experience, and with rich context, we have an opportunity to deliver unbelievable experiences for our customers.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Really, really great insight. And what I heard loud and clear is that it's way more than the mobile site and the app. It's all about engaging your mobile-first customers in the golden or mobile moment. And in order to do that, you've got to have a very sound mobile engagement strategy that looks beyond that app or that mobile site. Well, as both and Rob were presenting, we noticed quite a few questions come in, and I wanted to remind you that if you have one, to please submit it in the Q&A box on the right of your screen, or to tweet us at Mobile for Brands using the hashtag MobileFirst. So as of right now, we have quite a few questions, and if you don't mind, Rob and Todd, I'd like to go ahead and start asking you a few of these. That would be fantastic. So which brands, and I want to direct this directly to you, Paul, because you provide a lot of great success stories in your presentation. But Paul, from your perspective, which brands do you think are using mobile well in the customer journey, and why are they standing out as a mobile-first brand?
Yeah, it's a good question, John. For me, the number one brand who really gets mobile right now is Starbucks. And Starbucks are a brand that has done the work that both Rob and I have talked about, and they've figured out the way in which mobile can play a part in every part of their customer journey. So they're using it to drive footfall into the store. They're using it to engage people in the store. It's a key part of their loyalty scheme, and they deliver mobile payments through it. So they're doing a really great job of figuring out the role that mobile can play. It's not replacing the other media that they can use. As I said before, it is used to extend or enhance what they're doing. The reason why I say that they're a massive success is if you look at the money they're taking through the mobile app right now, it's been reported in Forbes earlier this year that Starbucks may be taking up to $1.2 billion through their mobile app and their loyalty scheme per quarter. I mean, that's a staggering amount of money. For anybody who says that mobile payments has yet to work and its day has yet to come, they're clearly not looking at the work that Starbucks are doing. But it's worth a final point to think about with Starbucks as a brand is the idea of them having a mobile loyalty scheme and the idea of them having mobile payments came from customers. They were customer demands through their suggestion scheme for what people wanted. So there's a very clear inference there that consumers, if you like, are voting with their thumbs and are pushing brands to deliver more via mobile. I mean, there are lots of other brands that are doing a pretty good job as well. Coca-Cola does a good job of using mobile for brand awareness, as does Nike, in terms of engaging with consumers as well. So there are lots of success stories to look at in every segment of in every market industry.
That's great. And I, as a consumer, also agree that they do a really good job. As a frequent traveler, I consider the Delta app to be one that's consistently engaging and providing me with more information, considering whether it's a flight delay or the opportunity to change my seat or the opportunity to explore things that are going on in the destinations in which I'm traveling. So I think there's a lot
to my point earlier on, John, once we've experienced the mobile service, once you know you can check into your flight on your mobile device and you can have a mobile boarding card, why would you go backwards from that?
That's right, absolutely. That loyalty just continues to go stronger because I have the information readily available at my fingertips no matter when or what's going on to ensure that I can make that decision and therefore reinforce that path to purchase the next time a travel opportunity might arise. So that's fantastic, Paul. Thank you for that. That's a good overview. When Rob was talking, he talked a bit about mobile context and the fact that mobile context is much more than where you are or your location. So Rob, from your perspective, what else should brands be doing to enhance the customer journey, and what other data points should they use to further enhance that experience beyond just location?
Sure. So actually, one of the questions that came in, just specifically, I'll read it back for everybody in case you guys haven't been looking at it, is, Rob, on the leverage mobile context side, can you speak to the economic model of data exchange? Who pays for what type of data, and how easy, hard is it to get the data? So it's interesting, as you go through that, much of that information is how do you think about the experience and how do you think about what you give? Because in the end, the customer owns all of the data. And as soon as we start losing track of that, I think that's when we start running afoul of customers' expectations. So the first thing I would say is, who owns the data? The customer, always the customer. And so it's about permissions and granting that. But the permissions gets a little bit fuzzy. I happen to live in Florida and was over at Disney the other day and had what they call their magic band. And by the nature of me entering their environment, I granted access, not explicitly, but implied in the sense of how they're able to use that information to enrich my experience. I'm fairly certain if I were happen to go to a retail pharmacy or to a retail store and they provided a similar experience, that probably crosses over that golden line between creepy and cool, and we wouldn't think of that quite being okay. So it's very important as you think about the relationship with the customer that we focus in on what does that contextual reference apply. So what can customers do? First off, know your customer. There are lots of databases I'm sure that every company has. The customer service database often doesn't connect to the purchasing database, and nothing frustrates us more than when we're interacting with a customer and they are a brand, and the brand doesn't realize when I hand from one location to another that I am who I am. Right? They don't know what I purchased. They don't understand the information. And these are classic experiences that we've all had all the way back to our customer service experiences of how does the IVRU connect to the, in the CTI, the computer telephony integration systems, how does that work well with the web tool sets? And being able to understand all these channels connecting with the user. So, kind of my first point would be is understand the relationship you have with the customer. First and foremost, the customer owns the data, and that this space is just getting started as we start going down this path. But certainly those two things would be the experiences I would look for first as you think about the contextual references. But take advantage of the information that you have and that your customer has given you as the first stepping point in terms of delivering on that great experience for the customers.
No, I definitely agree with you, Rob. And one of the points that Paul made earlier is that millennials now should be considered as centennials, so to speak. And so as a result, I'm not a millennial, Paul. My customers are not millennials per se. So how do we use mobile to engage non-millennials or centennials in today's environment so that it is not creepy and it is seen as cool?
Well, I think the evidence from the brands that I've seen that works really well is that people appreciate and want utility. So rather than trying to entertain people via mobile, that it's providing them with something that's useful, that is particularly successful. So if you look, for instance, at someone like Walgreens. Their loyalty app allows people to fulfill their prescriptions via just scanning the side of their bottle and the barcode that's on the side of your prescription medicine. It then allows you to order that medicine and then sends you a push message to tell you when it's ready to collect or to remind you that you should be reordering it. That scheme, I think, started a couple of years ago. They are now filling a prescription via that mobile app 1 every second. That says that consumers, again, are voting with their thumbs. They want utility. They want service delivered via mobile. They want the ease and convenience of it, and they're much more interested in that than they are in utility, which is why Rob rightly points out that the #1 app downloaded and that's used is a banking app, which is of course utility only. After that, if you set aside the social media channels, then the other apps that people frequently use are also utility-based, their news and their weather. So the task for marketers is to think, how can I provide some usefulness or some useful value to my consumers rather than try and entertain them via the mobile channel. There may be an opportunity to do that later on, but that first step is provide value.
That's an excellent point, Paul, because how much data is readily available to these brands? Consumers are constantly willing to give you a little bit of information, plus the purchases they make, the stores they frequent, approximately where they live and which geographies they might travel. And so the data that the brand possess is extremely valuable, considering how much access to that data we have. But interestingly, we received a question from one of our participants that I think is perfectly suited, because we need to understand how to mine data across the entire ecosystem. And so, Rob, I think this is a good question for you to address around the fact that how should MNOs get involved in the ecosystem to ultimately enhance that overall end-to-end customer journey?
That's great. You think about all of the different pieces of information that are out there and the trusted brands that are available to deliver on those experiences. As we think about this, the app world and what's happening there's a large portion of the society that's now saying that we're ready for the next thing. What is that next service going to be, or that next thing that allows us to aggregate and bring information together? And so as we think about service providers in total, not just network operators or virtual network operators, for clarity, you start thinking about who has data and who has information, and then how do we make that information available? So certainly location is one of those elements as you think about it. You have location from an app, you have location from your IP address, you have location from your, potentially even from the network being provided from the carriers. But I think for the carrier standpoint, the service providers, they have an opportunity as they're thinking about how do they make those experiences better or simpler or easier. One of the interesting things that I saw recently was one of the network operators was being able to provide form fill for a user. So taking the friction out of that experience so that I'm able to quickly fill out the order form by using the information that I have on file essentially with the network operators. So it's both the contextual elements, but more interesting to me is how do I make the utility of those applications, or all those applications, or whatever that next big thing is that comes up, work better. And the carriers are at that point in terms of being able to deliver on that experience for those customers, because those are the rails that all of this information is riding. They are the superhighway, the infrastructure by which, whether it be a text message or it be a data session or it be some other function, delivering on the web browser, all of those functions are going across that network. And so how carriers are able, or network operators are able to bring that information with the user in control of that to deliver on promotional services, customer service, loyalty experiences, or transactions, and remove friction from the process gets very interesting, I think, as we look at that. And that model is just getting started.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because it goes back to the fact that the more we work together and the closer we collaborate, then the more effective we can target and provide our customers with extremely personalized and customized experiences, whether it be transactions or offers or promotions and or just overall customer interactions in that regard. So, Paul, if you don't mind, I'd like to go back to just the general topic of today's conversation, and that is, how do we guide our customers toward their path to their next action? How do we guide them to that next path to action along the mobile journey?
Yeah, I think there's a very simple thing that you can do here, and I kind of hinted at it during the presentation, which is you could map out your customer journey as you understand it today in a very simple way, from awareness, consideration, and trial, purchase, loyalty, and look at all of your existing touch points, both physical and digital. Think about the role that mobile could have in either extending or enhancing or replacing some of those, but also critically look for the gaps within your current path to purchase. And of all of your touch points, try to work out where the moments of truth are for you. In other words, which are the moments where customers will take a view on your whole business simply from one single touch point, and think about what you could do with mobile to improve that. And your example of the airline industry is a fantastic one for that. So as Rob rightly points out, taking the friction out of the process of completing a form, or taking the friction out of the process of you entering security or boarding an aeroplane by using mobile to enhance that, is definitely one way that you can improve upon the customer journey that you're currently delivering. So you can do it in a simple way. I would say that those brands that are really serious about it need to go into the process of customer journey mapping in full, and you need to understand what customers are thinking, what customers are feeling, and what customers are doing at each point along that journey, and then map your digital channels towards that.
And Paul, that's an ideal scenario for companies to enhance what they're doing. But we've not talked about, and I think it'd be great for Rob to wrap up, is where do brands even start? I mean, what's the first thing we should be doing tomorrow morning to ensure that we're a mobile-first organization and we're serious about our mobile investment and our focus?
Now that's actually the most important thing out of this, right? Is how do we take all of this great information and apply it? What can we do tomorrow to change what it is that we're doing and make some progress along the way? So there's some assets that we have out on the mobilebrands.syniverse.com website, and I'd encourage people to try and take a look at that. One of them there is how do you build a mobile opt-in database? Like I mentioned earlier when we were talking before, for 20 years or 25 years, 50 years maybe, we've been asking home or work. We don't know if that's a valid number or not valid number, or whether or not you have any rights to be able to communicate with someone. Like we said, the mobile is an incredibly personal device. Never ever have we had something that provided the kind of access and utility that that device does. And so with, like we said, great responsibility, great power comes great responsibility. So I would certainly say take a look at your data. One of the interesting things is that when we think about the systems that we have today, very often we're handcuffed. We have limits in terms of what we're able to do, and so it's really helpful to find a partner that has a web-based or a cloud-based solution, because frankly, most of the systems that were deployed, whether it be the CRM system or your field service system or it be your reservation system, were put in at the height of the internet age, and that's frankly 20 years old. It's 2 decades now since those systems were put in place. The data schema, the underlying parts of those systems don't have a conceptual reference for what mobile is. The idea that you could be on your phone and in a store just blows up those systems. They don't understand that. The managing an opt-in or a customer's preference of channel just doesn't exist in those systems. So, it's all great to talk about A/B testing, but if I don't have a system that allows me the flexibility, the currency, the assets, the channel options to be able to deliver on those things, you're kind of just stuck. And so I think finding partners, once you have your data kind of cleaned up and you understand your journey, having partners that can help you iterate into that process or iterate in that process is really interesting in terms of being able to make progress quickly. And, a cloud-based option with a credible provider and a partner that has some significant experience in the industry, I think is really critical to ensure that you've got that. And when you think about the opt-ins, and managing that experience, make it relevant, encourage it, engage in the conversation with the user, play a game, have some fun with it, do scratch-offs, do a jackpot, do sweepstakes, offer something to get something is really a critical part of it. And most of all, and always, respect your customers.
That's great. Paul, Rob, thank you so much. You've shared so much wonderful insight and experience with us today. I've heard a few key takeaways. Let's review them quickly, and then we'll wrap up. We realize your time is valuable. So what we've heard is mobile is about behavior and cultural changes. It's not about technology. The switch to mobile is only going to get stronger, so make sure you've got your mobile engagement strategy ready now so that you will be successful in the future. Contextual relevance is critical. You got to make sure you get the right message to the right customer at the right time, no matter what. The fact that mobile is that bridge between digital and physical worlds, and mobile is omnipresent with you the entire time of that customer journey. And then make sure that you know what actions you want to drive to make mobile before you even start. Know what you want to accomplish before you even start so that ultimately you can exceed all of the goals that you put forward to your senior team. So again, thank you all for your time today. Rob and Paul, you offered some outstanding insights and some great information. We hope our guests found the discussion useful and have a better understanding of how to enrich engagement with your mobile-first customers at every stage of the journey. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've been recording this session, so we'll be sending out a follow-up in the coming days, along with a link to the slides on SlideShare and our latest guide to choosing a mobile engagement provider. If you have any questions or want further discussions, please email us at info@syniverse.com and we'll get something set up for you right away. If you want to continue the discussion, you can follow our enterprise team on Twitter @MobileForBrands, or you can always find us on LinkedIn under Enterprise and Intelligent Solutions Showcase page. Thank you again for your time, your valuable time, and have a great rest of your day. We look forward to speaking with you soon.